Most chess teachers tell you to play positional chess and play your pieces as active as possible, and then tactics will flow. But you cannot know how to play good without knowing how to play bad. I will show you one major positional flaw I made in a tournament game, which cost me the game. I mean, a very good game became a draw because of it, which is boring, but whatever. So we play a Carcom. I play d5, and after takes and takes, we enter the exchange variation. I always play bishop to d3, trying to go for a long read system. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just watch other videos on it, and it will be inside of my course. But my opponent played knight to f3. I play knight to c6, just controlling the center, putting pressure on the pawn. He plays c3, and here, as in the previous video, the engine wants me to play my bishop out, but I argue that playing the knight out is a bit better because we know for 100% of the variations our knight will go to f6, but we don't know where we want our bishop yet. If he plays something like h3, we want our bishop on f5. If he plays his bishop to d3, we probably want our bishop to g4. So I play my bishop out, and the engine always argues that it is not the best of moves because of knight to e5, but knight to e5 I just develop, and I don't see the problem with this. If you really want to attack me, I can at least defend with a rook or something, and this is not a good move at all. I have an open rook, and what is your bishop doing here? And if you take with this, I can just do the same. Probably kick your knight or something, and again take the open file. This is all very, very good for me. So I don't know why the engine acts as if this is a problem. I develop the knight, he pins my knight to the bishop, and now I develop my bishop. I could still choose, but it doesn't really matter, so I just develop the bishop, pinning the knight so that this is not an issue. And here I should just support my knight, maybe attack the bishop like this. I make my pawn chain, same thing as I did in the previous video, and here he develops his bishop. And usually the engine wants you to trade bishops, which I did, and now I have this active queen, and he activate his queen after d3. So here I told you I would show you my major positional flaw. After castles, he takes my knight. And my pawn structure is mainly on a light square. So positionally speaking, you probably want your queen on a dark square. Therefore, I take with the pawn. And he played knight to d2. And now you really gotta think, why is c5 that big of a deal? The problem with the c pawn is that it's a backwards pawn, first of all. Second of all, I mean, a backwards pawn means that it is not defended with a pawn. It is not defendable with a pawn, and especially when he controls the square in front of it, it is a big deal. So here I should either prepare to trade this off or just trade it off. But I thought that this and then take and take. And do I want my queen here? I don't think so. And I mean, I do create open files, but I didn't really like that. So I thought a long while about what is my opponent's plan. And I really wanted to play bishop to f5, but then I thought, well, I have this weakness. Probably he will attack the weakness. And again, I thought, as if in the previous video, always think about the arguments. His argument is that queen to d3 is a good move because he just scopes a lot of my light squares. And his argument is that this pawn is very, very weak. So I thought, okay, what is his plan? He cannot enter here because of the pawn, so probably he wants to infiltrate with his queen on a6. So one of the plans I was thinking about was bishop to f5, attacking the queen, putting my bishop on a lovely square, where now I can attack the b pawn and you cannot support it with a rook. But after bishop to f5, you have queen to a6, attacking my weak pawn and completely justifying putting the queen on d3. So I didn't want to do that because that's probably his plan. Why would I force him to execute his plan? That's why I played rook to d8. Rook to d8 intends to meet h3 with bishop to f5, and you cannot play queen to a6 because, first of all, I can attack it, second of all, the pawn is just hanging. And if I win this pawn becomes a backwards pawn because it's not supported with a pawn anymore, and I control the square in front of it. So winning the b pawn is quite a huge deal. That's why the engine just prefers me taking it first and instantly, but it doesn't really make a difference, I think. And that's why I play my rook to b8, so that I can kick your queen and it is not a threat that you can come to a6. My opponent plays b3. B3 is a worse version of b4. B4 is a very, very good move. Why is it a good move? Positional chess, right? I have this massive weakness. Now you just control the square in front of it twice. Twice with a pawn, which means that I can never push c5 because you will just take it either way, and is a protected passed pawn, which is very bad. And if I ever play a5, this just follows, and after takes and takes is the same thing. And you could argue, yes, this is also a weakness, but it is very difficult to exploit because my knight cannot reach. The open file will probably be yours, and I cannot attack this while you can attack my pawn because a5 is way weaker than e4. E4 is quite well supported and can be well supported even more. And that's why, even though missing a center pawn, usually I have two center pawns against one center pawn, but opening up the e file is quite good to fight for e5 and e4. So that's what white argues. So I didn't see that b4 is actually very, very bad for me because this weakness is just incredible. So I have to trade off the weakness instantly. The engine also prefers d7, but again, he can just stop me, and then I have to find the plan of f4 to play e5. Then after take and take, I support this well enough. I again have two center pawns, and now this is only controlled once. So I will support my center and play c5, trading off my weakness, trying to generate another weakness because now I have a 1 against 2 pawn minority attack. I will trade it off, create an isolated pawn, attack the isolated pawn, and then start a majority attack in the center, probably is how I proceed the game. So again, here this is a good move because you control this, and then after this, take, I support this well. Let's say you defend, this is a fork, I didn't see, so you have to go back supporting this. I told you I will support my center and try to play c5. And after some preparations, um, I'm looking for a variation where I get c5 to work. How does okay, c5 quite works here, but not incredibly strong. So in this variation, he has two weak pawns. I will win probably both of them, and then push my past a pawn, push my past d pawn, and win the game like that. That's why material is equal, and the engine says minus 2.4 because I will win this one for sure. Push this, and after I push my d pawn, you will have to stop it, which means you are quite passive and I'm very active, so I can probably win the a pawn and then push two pass pawns and just obliterate you. So that is really what I would have to find here, but that's a quite vague idea I'm not very comfortable with. But I do have to learn moving the knight back to support the c5. pawn break and making my f pawn mobile to prepare e5, opening up the f file, making sure I have two center pawns, weakening the grip over c4, c5, so I can make the c5 pawn break, making the c file open to a very weak pawn, and proceeding the game like that. I didn't know that. And I just thought probably he wants to infiltrate, so let me stop his infiltration with a threat. That's why I thought that this was a good move. He defends it, and now again, probably his plan is playing queen to a6 and b4. So I play a5 so that I control a6 and I control b4. And after the knight jumping in, I do my plan of bishop to f5, attacking the queen. The queen moves, and again, I have to ask myself, what is his plan? He played his queen to e3. To be fair, I didn't see the move. This X-ray defends c5 so that I cannot play the pawn break while defending the knight. Usually c5 works, and after take, the knight is not defended anymore. But actually, the queen defends both, and they're both attacked with one queen, so there is no tactic. So that doesn't work, and I thought, okay, I have to play c5. Otherwise, he will just get b4, and I will be completely demolished. So I play my rook to b5, trying to support the c5 pawn break, and he plays f3. F3 tries to kill my knight. That is his only argument. It's just, I will not allow your knight to e4. And I'm willing to make my diagonal very weak because it's a dark square diagonal. You have a light squared bishop, so it doesn't really matter. And he pacifies his own knight, makes his king a bit weaker, just for the sake of getting my knight out of e4, which is a valid move, but I didn't really like it, to be honest. The engine thinks it just makes everything a draw. And here I'm thinking, okay, you have pressure here, infiltration here, maybe something here. This knight is very strong. You just killed my knight, so my knight is very useless. While your knight is a beast, let me just trade off the knights. And after takes and takes, yeah, I thought I have to push this, so I have my queen to c7. I will try to play c5. After takes and takes, I will have immense pressure on two pawns on an open file. I still have my minority attack if I need it. And if I can win the c pawn, I have a pass d pawn, and I will probably win. My opponent plays best move a3, and this is just preparing to play b4. If you play b4 right now, that's just a free pawn. So you play a3, and I always thought that a3 was way too weakening of a move, and I will win the b3 pawn, but your knight defends it for now, and if I prepare to attack it, you just push it, and now there's nothing. And he achieved his pawn on b4, making my c5 square impossible to control. So my c6 pawn will be forever weak. And here I play my queen to c7, just trying to scope some dark squares, maybe infiltrating on f4 if his queen ever leaves. If he ever moves his h pawn, maybe I control g3 and I have infiltration like that. And I'm just trying to play c5. But he plays b4, and actually, I am screwed because he controls c5 forever. I cannot trade off my weakness because I just wasted way too much time. And now I have a bishop for knight advantage, but it's very, very close. I have two weaknesses which I cannot trade off, and I thought after take and take, the open file will always be yours. And I saw this variation, but his knight will just try to jump in. I can never control this file, and I will be forever lost. His knight will go to c5 on a dark square. Again, a very big positional mistake. leaving a outpost on the opposite color of your bishop. And if you see all of his pawns are on dark squares, his knight outpost is on a dark square. My weak pawn is on a light square, but that doesn't really matter, and my bishop is completely useless. It cannot go too many squares, and if it can go somewhere, it cannot touch these pawns, it cannot touch this knight on an outpost, and it will control incredibly important squares forever. And I can never trade it off. So I saw this position and I thought, okay, this is just losing. This knight on the outpost on the opposite color of my bishop is just losing. So I cannot take, opening up this file, making his knight very, very active. And I was just debating, do I want this? And then you attack my bishop. I have to go to a4 to control b3 because if I allow his knight to b3, it will go to c5 to the square. I cannot trade it off at all, ever. So I thought bishop to c2, rook to c1, bishop to a4, controlling this. And now I have to move my rook away. Then I thought, okay, at least I get his bishop off of the a file, so I can move this rook, take, and infiltrate. Then I thought maybe he plays rook to a2 because I cannot attack it because he controls the file. So now I have to play my bishop to a4. And after bishop to a4, what is my bishop doing? What is my rook doing? Why do I have these massive weaknesses? And I mean, he will just do whatever. I will probably have to go back. He can now start infiltrating. I probably have to try and make something a bit active. And the only thing I have going for myself is now after take, you cannot take with this pawn. But I mean, that does absolutely nothing. After takes and takes, this pawn is well defended, but I do now have some form of a plan. I can maybe achieve take so that after take, I can take the rook and I have this isolated weak pawn. I do have this backwards pawn to gang up on, but I mean, I'm still just losing. He will make pawn breaks, attack me. He has this massive weakness now on an open file. This is very, very losing. The engine says it's 0-4 and holdable, but I can't even explain rook to e4, so yeah, this is very losing in my opinion. So I just played a4, so he can never get his knight to b3. Offered a draw. My opponent thought for a long while and said, I want to play a bit longer. Because, I mean, fair enough, he is very, very winning because of this weakness. The one thing I have going is that the situation is very, very closed and my weaknesses are very difficult to attack. I thought maybe one of his only plans is playing f4 so that I can only shuffle, play his knight here. I can only make some random moves, put his knight backwards. Um, maybe not like that. Um, no, you have to go like this. Then I can only shuffle my pieces a bit, and the only thing he can do is do this and pray that I don't take his knight. Obviously, I will take his knight because if I don't take the knight, his knight will first of all go to the outpost again, yes, and have instant and just stupid amounts of pressure on this pawn. And after his queen goes backwards, I don't know how to defend this. I will have to go back and have very, very passive pieces. So I cannot allow that. Okay, I messed up. So I thought that, yeah, he's obviously winning, but I have the advantage that everything is very closed and difficult to attack. So we shuffle a bit around. He plays f4 to activate his knight. I put my rook back just to play a defensive setup. I just want to hold everything. And here I thought he had the plan of e3. h4 because if I ever take and take, he controls everything, but I do have finally a plan, but he has a better plan. And I thought that this was winning for him, and I'm correct, but it's obviously very difficult. I don't see how you defend everything. You can just defend everything. Disgusting. Um, but I mean, fine. My opponent didn't see this plan and just activated his knight. Here, apparently, I have to play f6 to keep the knight out. But I thought that would weaken the e pawn too much, but that just doesn't matter. If you gang up on the e pawn and try to play g4, I can always play my bishop to g4, shutting the file so it doesn't actually matter. Yeah, I should have seen that, but I thought it was a bit too risky. I just make some random moves. I thought maybe his plan was to play knight to h4 to take my bishop, and then I would have taken and controlled the file and just try to infiltrate, double up, infiltrate more, have pressure on the c pawn, win the d pawn, and try to push my passed pawns. That was the plan. So I wanted to give away the bishop, damage my structure just to get the open file. He played his knight to e5. And I mean, I thought this is just a draw, but it's quite annoying. And he is trying to play g4. G4 is quite annoying because after g4, I have to move and he gets the pawn break. Apparently, this is just fine, but I don't want to open up. I want to hold a draw. But apparently, I could just go for a win after this, and this pawn break is just horrific. I mean, especially because in this variation, I can just kick the knight and have all sorts of discoveries. Apparently, I can kick the knight again, and I don't know what queen to f7 does. I'm not trying to infiltrate, so I don't know why my queen has to go to h7. Yeah, I mean, engine will do engine things. So I don't know. I thought h5 to stop this pawn break, and my opponent played rook to e1. I thought, what is the point of rook to e1? I have no clue. Let's just make this defensive fortress where you never can break through. Here he played knight to d3, obviously trying to go for the outpost and the weak pawn. So I messed up again. So I just traded it off. Now we have this position, only queens and rooks, but I have two weaknesses. So obviously my opponent's still winning, but very difficult. I play my king to g7. Why g7? Because I want to move my rooks if it is necessary. And I could try to go for a plan like this, to put some pressure on his pawns. If I can win the a pawn, I have a passed pawn 3 squares away from queening, and a open file to infiltrate with my rook. So that is probably winning if I can achieve it, but I cannot achieve it. Queen to g3, intending to just pin my pawn to the king and making the h5 pawn very, very weak. So I just play rook to h8, already defending the pawn. And here he plays rook to e5. And actually, my plan after this was just queen to e7 to stop his queen infiltration. But here he has this disgusting move f5. Both of my pawns are pinned, and I'm just screwed. So I wanted to play that for a very long while, and then I saw that it was actually a blunder. So I thought queen to d8, achieving the same thing, just without the fork, but that just disconnects my rooks. So I play rook to e8 first to just defend everything, so I can now move my queen wherever I want it without disconnecting my rooks. He played rook to e1. I don't know what that does, to be fair. Uh, Maybe he wants to sack. Maybe I thought he wants to play his rook to g5, his queen to h4. then his rook to g3, and his other rook to to e5, and try to push for some attack there. And I always had the plan of going f6, but now my e pawn is hanging. But I just played queen to b8. Again, if I do this, I might get into some trouble because g5, I just make a move. Now you can play your queen to h4. I have to move to make the spin so that you cannot move this rook. If I don't find that, and let's say I just do something like this, apparently this is already a good thing for him. If I take, you have oh, mouse slip. Take, sacrifice, and my queen is hanging. So I cannot take, and I'm screwed. So he does have a lot of tactics that work in his favor. That's why I just play my queen here to have this pressure, and have this spin so that you cannot move the rook and move the pawn. And he just slides his queen and offered the draw, which I happily took. Because the engine says it's a draw, but I have the only weaknesses. He trusted my defensive fort and didn't even go for anything else. I'm very happy with the draw. But the main takeaway is that if you have a weakness, trade it off instantly. Instantly. I believe that if I trade it off, take, you do this, I attack the queen. Let's say you're not boring and you don't trade queens, I can go for the same thing. Let's say you defend in the same fashion that already blunders a pawn. So let's say you do this. I can now just make my queen active. You make your rook active. I start my minority attack. Let's say you activate your other rook. Activate and activate. Minority attack goes through. And after, you have to shuffle your rook, which doesn't make sense. I can just keep pressuring all of your pawns. Eventually, you will have to give me something. And after take, if queen takes, the pawn's hanging. If pawn takes, the pawn is still hanging. Wow, the pin. Why has the queen have to be here? Oh, to defend the rook. That's disgusting. Okay. So yeah, apparently I can take, and if knight takes, the pawn is hanging, and you are already in a bad position. So if I traded off the pawn, I believe I win that game. I cannot lie. My position was looking fantastic. Take, and I have so much open. I mean, I have two open files to two weak pawns. I have a minority attack in my back pocket, and I have the only central pawns and a very beautiful pawn chain. I believe I win this game, but I didn't trade off my weakness, and I let my opponent freeze my weaknesses into a very losing game. That was a very big blunder, to be fair, on my side. Always trade off weaknesses instantly. Look if he can freeze the weaknesses, and don't make the positional blunders I make. I hope you enjoyed, learned anything. Subscribe if you did, and I will see you in the next one.